Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to me, your host, Christian Watson. It's so good to be with you guys today. The news cycle has been very interesting, hasn't it? And I came across something actually in my feed that concerned me. So as many of you know, I do live in Georgia, and right now, Georgia is the zenith of all political activity in the country. Prophets from both sides of the aisle, right side and the left side, have been prophesying that if Georgia falls to either side, the hope of the country, the soul of the country, whatever massive abstraction they can make to make you feel more compelled, to appeal into the pathos within your faculties, more compelled to vote. They've been saying it. In fact, Joe Biden was actually in Georgia today, and Perdue and Loeffler running around doing their best to get out the vote and everything. And look, I understand this. Georgia is critically important, but we have to understand that when we place so much of our destinies, when we invest so much of our destinies and our fate into political compositions, we are taking away our ability to make change in our own lives, which will eventually also affect the outer world, which will affect the grander world. What did Emerson say? Emerson said, "The endmost shall eventually become the outmost, and every heart shall vibrate to that iron string of your will, of your actions." But regardless, if you have any reason to doubt me or whatever, good for you. But I'm particularly concerned about something that one of the candidates, Raphael Warnock, said in a sermon. So Fox News reported on the sermon. Fox News said that he called senators gangsters and thugs who were willing to kill children. This was a day ago they reported this. And they basically got this from a Washington Free Beacon report that was made a few days ago on a sermon he did in December 2017. So we're actually going to watch a bit of the sermon, and I'm going to comment a little bit on it, and I'll get back to the articles.
While others were sleeping, members of the United States Senate declared war, launched a vicious and evil attack on the most vulnerable people in America. Herod is on the loose. Herod is a cynical politician.
Okay, let's pay very close attention to the way he's using this language. So he's saying members of the United States Senate are doing this thing. Then he mentions an ancient king, a Judean king. Herod, for those of you who do not know, is a Judean, a Roman king who was anointed over Judea, which was called the Herodian kingdom. And so what he's trying to do is something that many pastors do, many orators do. They link events in history to the current time period so they can transmit the atrocities or the feelings about the atrocities of history to current time periods to make you feel a certain way. This is blatant rhetorical manipulation, dark wizardry on the display right now. So let's continue.
Who's willing to kill children and kill the Children's Health Program.
Okay, look at this. Again, so he's taking what is happening in the modern world, applying it to a dictator in the ancient world, and now saying that people in the modern world are embodying this dictator by killing children because they made a certain vote about a certain program. Well, we'll get into the implications of this mindset in a moment, but this is what he's doing. This is why Warnock is a dangerous thinker. Not dangerous in like the good way, like he challenges authority. Dangerous in that he makes assumptions from very, very shaky premises, which could have very, very deadly consequences to our rights.
In order to preserve his own wealth and his own power. Hope is in the air, but Herod is on the loose. The hopes and the fears of all the years are met in thee tonight. And so on Friday night, the United States Senate
How pretentious he
decided
sounds.
by a slim majority
How unrighteously indignant he
the
sounds.
pockets of the poor, the sick,
Okay, see?
the old, and the yet unborn in order to line the pockets of the ultra-rich. Don't tell me about gangsters and thugs on the streets. There are more gangsters and thugs in
Okay,
Washington, D.C.
red herring, logical fallacy. He is distracting from the issue of the real issue of gang violence, which actually plagues the community that his church is in trying to attack politicians. And look, I agree, there are a lot of thugs in Washington, but not for this reason. So let's actually understand what he's talking about here. So, as the Fox News article said, he said this sermon after Senate lawmakers voted to pass a sweeping tax overhaul worth $1.4 trillion. And of course, it links to the sermon and everything. And so all that happened was politicians in the Senate said, you know what? We're going to cut taxes. And according to Warnock, Cutting taxes is a cardinal sin, a highest malign offense against the poor. Why? This is predicated upon the ancient progressive lie, which has matriculated to a sort of higher sense of political exposure and has been touted over and over and over again by every manner of progressive thinker and politicians, that says that if a tax cut happens, and it happens for people who are middle class or for anyone really, and it has some sort of trickle-down effect, right? So they'll say that, oh, yes, you want to cut taxes for corporations or businesses, even though most tax cuts, especially the ones that we're not talking about, happen in the context of universal tax cuts. But simply because the rich get hooked in to the universal tax cut, that must be evil according to progressives. Again, this claim is false for many reasons. Number one, the action of taxation is inherently troublesome in and of itself, because it itself involves the unwilling taking of resources from someone. That's number one. So actually, the action that they are trying to impose upon the wealthy person is itself a kind of evil. Now, some people think it's a necessary evil. Others think that it's whatever. It's a kind of evil. That's number one. So it's actually, they're having a category mistake here. That's number one. Number two, just because a wealthy person keeps more of their money does not mean a poor person suffers. This assumes that the world operates on a single plane of existence, in which every action, especially every action endeavored by the government and by society, are interlocked and interlinked, and they cannot be separated by anything. And so that means, by this logic, if I keep more of my money, I'm not rich, but if I keep more of my money, there is an opportunity cost for the poor people who could be benefiting from the programs that could be funding their ascent from poverty, which leads us to the third problem with this ideology. It assumes that the government has a moral duty to help people. It does not. The government only has a duty to protect your rights. The government does not do a good job at protecting people or helping people in their poor capacities, and it also is not endowed with the legitimate authority to help anyone in a destitute state. That is the grounds for charity. That is the grounds for that person to itself recognize that how special they are, recognize their skills, recognize other things, and use ways to cultivate them. Poverty in America as well. Let's understand this. According to the Heritage Foundation, the poor in America typically have TVs, they have Xboxes, they have healthcare, they have all manner of things which would disperse with the perception that they are destitute. In America, poverty is not always total and utter destitution. But again, these progressives like to play these word games, like to engage in philosophical mischievousness. And they like to make claims and construct problems with language. But we're going to take back language, and we're going to blaze the light of philosophical truth through these things. So it is not gangster-like to want to keep more of my money. It is a violation of my rights to demand that I give my money up by force for some cause, regardless of if the cause is worthy or not. Let me, in my individual capacity, under the power of my free will, under the power of my individualism, decide if I want to give my resources to a cause or not. Do not force me into a compact that I did not agree with. That is wrong. But according to Warnock, everything is morally equivalent. It's morally equivalent. And when you get into this kind of consequentialist ethics, you have a problem. The quality of certain ideas, or the moral quality of certain ideas, cannot and should not change because of the consequences. We have to weigh things by the rules and principles which animate their being in this world, not by the consequences. So you can do that by rejecting Warnock's consequentialist utilitarian ideology, rejecting his false use of language, and understanding just how illogical and irrational and dangerous his opinions about my resources, about your resources, about natural rights are. Because the sooner we do that, the sooner we can actually have a grasp of these ideas and have a firm grasp of the light of the truth, as Socrates said in the Republic. All right, guys, I love you all. And as always, please, I beg you, I importune you, I beseech you, stay pensive. I will see you later. Bye.